Forming a government at the federal level in Belgium is never easy. An ever larger number of parties, all smaller parties, because there are no truly large parties in Belgium, need to find an agreement before a government can kick off. That has always taken a fairly long time, and that time becomes gradually longer and longer, up to a point where it becomes disturbing, but at the same time also intriguing. There are several reasons and explanations for these long processes of government formation, and we will today focus on one of them. A strong, informal and unwritten rule in Belgium says that a government needs to be composed of parties that can together always mobilize a majority of the seats in parliament, assuming that all parties elected on the lists of these governing parties will vote yes when the government asks the parliament to give its confidence on day one, and every time again when it possibly might get into trouble. The unwritten rule says that the federal government in Belgium must be a majority government. The idea of a minority government that needs less parties to be fully on board, that is not certain of finding support in parliament, and that therefore needs to seek parliamentary majorities for each of its policy proposals is, still according to that same unwritten rule, not an option. And there is indeed in Belgium no tradition at all of working with minority governments. If a government does not have a majority, it must be a temporary thing. For example, when the Belgian federal government lost its majority in December 2018 because N-VA left it, the only reason why it could go on was because the elections were coming soon, and that therefore the minority government would only be a temporary thing. A Belgian government must be a majority government. The Belgian government must be a majority government or will not be. Or, another argument that one often hears, a minority government is something that cannot work in Belgium. And that is intriguing, because we know that in several other countries, minority governments are not seen as anomalies. And in some cases, they are even the most common form of government. And since one can always learn from comparisons between political systems, we would like to explore today what minority governments are, how they function, what their potential advantages and disadvantages are, and of course, to what extent something like that is compatible with the rules, the habits and necessities of politics in Belgium. The focus will be on minority governments. That means that we will leave aside other elements that are also often cited as obstacles to form a federal government, like the need for parties of the same party family to stay together, the need for a pre-secured majority in each of the language groups, or the need for the federal and the sub-state governments to be as similar as possible. Minority government, why and why not? That is what we will explore today. We have invited two speakers to introduce the topic to us. The first is Bonnie Field from Bentley University. Bonnie works on relations between parties in parliament, on candidate selection, on regime democratization, and on minority governments. She is the author of the book Why Minority Governments Work, Multi-Level Territorial Politics in Spain, a book published in 2016. She is the right person to bring us this comparative and external view. Bonnie will speak first and will be followed by Lucien RIGAUX of the Centre de Recherche de Droit Public at the ULB. He is the author of a recently published article in the Revue belge de droit constitutionnel with the title Les gouvernements minoritaires en Belgique, Minority Governments in Belgium. And that makes him the ideal person to launch a reflection on the why and why not of minority governments. After both introductions, we will open up for questions and comments from the participants.